Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked here on the channel. This is the series where I talk about every single book on my shelves because we've got to heal my inner child. Today we are talking about Jill Baguchinsky's Mammoth. That's right, it's YA contemporary time. These reviews are few and far between on the channel, so bear with me, sci-fi fantasy readers. Some quick disclaimers before we start. I was sent this review copy for free from the publisher. Regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books except my patrons, and all opinions are my own. I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible. If you do want to go into this book knowing absolutely nothing, pause the video, come back when you've read it, we'll talk then. And I will link the story graph for the book below in case you want to check out any user-generated content warnings. As I say, this is a young adult contemporary book that originally released in November of 2018. This is author Jill Baguchinsky's only YA contemporary, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure the rest of her stuff is fairly horror adjacent, as in young adult horror. It's an outlier, but it's the only book of hers that I've read. In this book, we follow Natalie Page, who is a high school student, paleontology nerd, and fashion blogger. She's also plus size, which is very significant to the whole book, and she is off on the adventure of a lifetime for a paleontology nerd. She's going to a mammoth dig site in Texas, and this is the story of that summer, basically. Jill Baguchinsky, when talking about writing this book, said she wanted to write a book that was about feminism, about body image, and about being a woman in a male-dominated field, particularly in STEM. I feel like it's tossed around a lot that there are books that we needed as teenagers. I don't think this would have been enough to break through the late 2000s diet culture, but it definitely had an impact on me as an adult, and I think maybe in a world where maybe things are getting a bit better, it would have helped a bit more. Just the 2000s were a wild time. It's a really beautiful story. It's a really honest take on all of the complexities around loving yourself and how difficult that can be to do. I really love Natalie as a main character. I saw myself a lot in her, except I was an archaeology nerd, not a paleontology nerd. I think it's the way that she's written to be constantly thinking about her body, how much space she is taking up, and how in your head you get about what everyone else thinks about your body. Just It felt very close to home in a lot of ways. It's a very difficult book for me to read, especially at times, because it does feel very raw a lot of the time, but it's so well handled throughout the book, and Natalie's journey throughout the book is so beautifully done. And I think it's balancing Natalie as a confident character and her confidence being so key to her persona, and also acknowledging how difficult that is to hold up in a world that is the world that we live in, was just really well handled and thought out and made me very emotional at times. But also all of the other stuff. Being a woman in STEM, that comes into the story. Fashion, paleontology, it's all there. It's a well-rounded book in that sense. It's not just a book about body image. I think this is a good example of a fun YA plot where it's a little bit ludicrous. It's plausible because we're still in the real world, but it's a little bit silly, the amount of things that happen and the kind of tropes that the story falls into for obvious reasons. It's a book. I think the biggest thing that was slightly non-believable and that often crops up as being a non-believable thing in YA contemporary is that she has a blog. She has a written blog. Nobody's reading a written blog. Certainly not teens. Those, plus size fashion and paleontology blogs are things that people definitely read lots of. By the by. But anyway, the broad plot was exciting. It was kind of silly. It was a fun time. You knew that, broadly speaking, nothing was really going to go wrong. I enjoyed it. A good YA contemporary adventure. I think partly because of that plot and partly because of the characters, who are all hugely enjoyable. Even the more antagonistic ones are at least interesting to read. That all comes together to make it a very readable book. I've powered through it multiple times, and where normally a YA contemporary will grab me the first time and then I'll go, great, done, don't need to read that again. This one I've reread multiple times, and every time I've reread it, I've had a good time with it. And I think that's probably a good chunk of that is my personal connection to the subject matter, but I still think it's a really great book. When I need a brain cleanse, sometimes I just need YA contemporary, and this is that for me. It's perfect for that. I would say if you are planning on picking these up, having a think about whether you're comfortable going into the brain of an insecure teenager when it comes to body image. That can be very difficult to do, very much going back into the brain space where body image is all that you think about for the majority of the day. When you aren't thinking about a mammoth skull, you're thinking about your body. That can be a little bit triggering, and I would bear that in mind if you were planning on picking this up. And also, obviously, if you're watching this channel, YA contemporary is not usually the vibe. I think we've had 2 reviews in this kind of second phase of Overbooked, but normally we would be talking about paleontology, but of dragons or something. Somebody write that book. Ooh, I want that. But yes, I'm aware that for most of you this probably isn't the vibe. In terms of other things you might want to read, I really enjoy Ashley Poston's Geekerella series. Those are fun YA contemporaries that kind of lean up against fantasy a little bit. What was the other contemporary that we talked about recently? I genuinely can't remember. Other than that, I don't have a huge number of recommendations. This isn't a genre that I sit in very often. When I was scripting this video, I really got to thinking about that, and I think part of the reason I read a lot of sci-fi fantasy is that very often body image does not come into it, and I think especially when I was a teen, gravitating away from YA contemporary, again, we're talking 2009, because I didn't want to read books that were about that. Even the books that were trying to go against that, it was still all they were talking about. So yeah, maybe I moved into dystopian because nobody was caring necessarily in dystopian fiction. Who's to say? Overall, would I recommend you read this if you want a YA contemporary? I think this is a good one. Have you read this? Do you have favourites in this genre, marketing bracket, whatever we want to call it? I would love to hear from you, especially if you've got any that you think are those kind of sci-fi fantasy adjacent kind of books. While you're down there commenting all of those things, please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. It does genuinely make me feel loved and appreciated. You can also come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I would like to say a huge thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams, and more. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you so much to you for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. And I think the fact that Natalie is trying to be confident, it's not a case of I'm trying to lose weight throughout the story. And this is just going under my bookshelf. This is